Alrighty, good afternoon. I will call the work session for November the 5th to order at 4:31, Ms. Pearl. And I will turn it over to Dr. Spence for the items of information.
All right, first of all, we have a COVID update. Well, first of all, we have Ms. Audrey Gibbons here, who is our newly elected board member and will start in January. And so she's going to be here kind of watching as how we progress through our meetings. We're going to...
Welcome.
Yes.
Are you sure?
You still have time.
Yeah.
You still have time.
We're going to start off with our COVID-19 update with myself, Dr. Whitehead, and Coach Waters. So, how do I hear?
Just to give you an update where we stand, the last time we met, we were actually kind of on a downhill for our numbers, and I think our community transmission at that point was 125.5, and unfortunately we've seen an uptick, and so we are now at 197.6. So things are kind of trending back up. Our 7-day rolling average right now is 12.14 cases per day, and that is going to go up over the next couple of days because our daily new case rate has ranged from 15.6 up to 16.3 in the last several days. So our 7-day rolling average is probably going to increase here shortly.
Before you continue, that is people who have been exposed to, not people who have tested positive.
This is the daily case rate. This is the daily report
For the
per
county.
100K in our county.
Okay.
So yes,
Not the school system. But
right.
Okay, I was
Yes, in the county altogether for
Okay.
Glen County, yes. We're waiting on the numbers. They weren't ready yet today for the most recent positive test rate. But that usually comes in weekly as well, and that's been on the rise as well. So the percentage of people that are testing positive out of the percentage that are testing is also increasing. So we're seeing that as an area. And just to provide this for context, because we are getting requests from the schools about relaxing some of the criteria and some of the restrictions that we have, but at this point in time, it's the case rate isn't supporting the idea of relaxing any of those standards. And what we're seeing happen, the reports of people that we're getting in, they are identifying for us their source of transmission, and it is coming from gatherings of people. We have a recent issue that was in the news about the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center who had to have a closure due to an outbreak. We've had a local church that is experiencing an outbreak, and so those things are indicative of having those large groups together that have potentially relaxed some of the standards. And so again, we stay in contact with DPH, and the guidance right now is from them is to not rock the boat any more than we have to for what we're doing internally. And so with that, we are looking at guidance that will be going out to the performing arts groups to talk about looking at alternatives to indoor audience attended events, so that they might look at some outdoor concerts and or look at some virtual options. And so we're looking at some things that we could share with them to be creative in that way. And then the other thing related to all of those pieces is our virtual learning applications. And for the high school, that opened up on Monday. And as of just a little while ago, we've already had 434 people complete that application, with 175 of those requesting to start back in person in January. So that rate is pretty high. There were 212 that have asked to stay virtual, but what the schools are doing is looking at those that have asked to stay and determining whether they're going to be academically eligible to continue in virtual learning, because they want to make sure that any students that are out there that don't have a hardship to be virtual are being academically successful in that environment. And so the schools are looking at each of the forms as they come in.
Do we plan for our virtual learning environment to be similar second semester to first semester, or are we looking at a different format?
The numbers will somewhat dictate that for elementary and middle. And then the high schools and the middle schools are both looking at more options available through Edgenuity to be able to support the students and not impact negatively on face-to-face class sizes.
Coach Waters?
Okay, Dr. Spence just asked me to come and kind of give you an update on athletics and where we stand. I don't think I've spoken to the board since COVID hit. So basically, when all this came about, the Georgia High School Association, which is our governing body, they formed a sports medicine or a task force that's made up of physicians from Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. And so basically all the guidance we are getting is from CHOA in Atlanta. So we follow the guidance, the guidelines, and the policies of Georgia High School Association for our players and our coaches. We decided locally to form a local group that's led by Dr. Sasser. He's got a couple of pulmonologists and others that give us some guidance as well. And we have added some onto what Georgia High School does as far as restrictions for our student athletes and our coaches that we feel like will keep them safer. So far this fall, we've been pretty successful. We haven't been perfect by any means, but just following the guidelines, we've done a good job. We have to constantly stay on top of it, as you do with anything. Our biggest problem is, and I know a couple of you have kids that play travel ball, but when the kids are going out of town and they play weekend games, they don't have any restrictions. They go without masks, they go without social distancing. So when they come to school events and they're asked to wear a mask or social distance, a lot of times they don't take you seriously and you have to keep reminding them. But so far, we've had great success. We met last week to discuss winter sports, which are basketball and wrestling, and those of course are a different animal because they're indoors. So we've decided to go with 50% capacity. We're going to tape off every other row, so it'll create social distancing within our gyms, and we're going to require everyone on the floor level, from cheerleaders to fans to students to faculty, to wear a mask indoors. We will ask our administrators to be on top of that, to be vigilant, and basically just do the best we can with that. We know it's going to cost us money with basketball, but it's worth it at the end to try to stay safe indoors. So, whereas our gyms can fit about 1,500 people, we'll be looking at 750 roughly for max out in a basketball game. So that only happens a couple times a year when Glenn plays Brunswick. So generally we have 200 to 300 fans at a basketball game. So we'll have plenty of room to spread out and practice social distancing. But the big thing is going to be enforcing the mask. And I met with Dr. Spence last week, both high school principals and a few others. And we think it's still important to, like I said, not lessen our restrictions, but to continue with the mask indoors for athletic events as well. So always happy to answer any questions you may have.
Let's get one COVID comment, of course. The reason that we are where we are today is because we did what we did yesterday. And people don't understand that. They said, oh, it's now safe, but we haven't even hit flu yet. When flu and COVID are at the same time, it's going to be horrific for the hospital and the hospital people, which makes it worse on a typical patient who's a diabetic or whatever and comes in, because they get delayed care. And then they get worse, and then they get too bad to bring back. And we've seen a fair amount of that kind of thing happen in other hospitals. We don't want to be that hospital. So I just want everybody to know that I appreciate everything that we do. I've got nothing but positive responses from what we've done. No negative whatsoever, not one person, which I'm surprised, which means I'll probably get emails or whatever, which is fine. But what we're doing is working, and it's why we are where we are today. So thank y'all for that. And that also comes from some people at the hospital that wanted me to share that too. So thank you.
Any other questions about COVID?
Now, I'd just say to kind of piggyback on Nadala, when we set or we requested the directive for masks to be required in school, the target was through the end of first semester. So I would say by next month in our meetings, we need to determine if we're going to continue that, because I think parents need to be aware in advance and not wait until we're headed back into the second semester. So I think that should be a discussion for next time.
All right.
How about the, you said Brunswick Glen basketball game is usually our max load for there. Where's the home? Where are they playing at this year? Are they back and forth, or are they?
Oh gosh, you would ask me that. I think the first game I believe is at Brunswick, and the second game's at Glen. And like I said, we're going to tape off every other row to create social distancing, and we're going to
But Brunswick can house more people than Glen, obviously.
Yeah,
right?
so when I came in last week, we went in and counted every seat. And so we're gonna, I think Brunswick houses 1,800 and Glen's right at 1,700 or 1,656, I believe, so.
Have you thought about maybe doing like we do with graduation, if it's in Brunswick, we have the auditorium and even Glen Academy, and possibly, maybe a way to get some revenue is stream it and put it on TV and have people that can buy tickets to watch it there.
We discussed building a basketball floor at the stadium and just
Yes, we did.
playing it outdoors. But no,
I was going to say stadium.
That's just
Yeah.
a big game, I know. And I
yeah,
know
we're probably gonna the game at Brunswick. I bought a camera in there, so it'll be live streamed. I don't have a camera at Glen Academy yet. I'm looking into that, so we'll probably stream that game. Just because we're gonna have to turn away 1,000 people.
Right.
But that's the world we live in.
It is,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
Can't wait to get through this.
Any other questions for considering Crow's member? Thanks, Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Whitehead's going to jump down to 3B since she's here already. This is a proposed action item, and then we'll go back up.
So this is a proposal to use the 21st Century Grant funds that are in place for after-school programming at Altama, Bourgeois, and Goodyear to be able to purchase Chromebooks and storage carts for those sites. And this amount of $59,139.18 would allow us to purchase 192 Chromebooks with 6 storage carts to be assigned to those locations. So we have a K2 grant and a 3-5 grant at each site. But this would allow us to have those devices ready for students to use there, and then be able to assign them as needed for students to have access to digital learning outside of school.
Any questions there? I know you're not right off the bat.
And those are the schools we identified as most at risk and needed them, right?
Yes, sir, and this was
And
a
that was
competitive
Title I.
grant that we wrote for last year, and we were awarded, and it's a 5-year grant. So this is the second year of the grant, and we were able to carve out the funds in this one to increase this, and potentially with our carryover money from this grant, we'll be able to add another set per grade band at those sites, so that every student, it would basically be 1-to-1 for any student in the 21st Century program.
Oh, good, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Whitehead.
Thank you.
Mr. Boudreaux. Is he out there?
Thank you.
How's it going, bud?
Thank you, sir. How are you?
The floor is yours, Mr. Boudreaux.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
Start off the report with Glen Academy. What we have today is the guaranteed maximum price to present for the new athletic PE facility. Mr. Tootin, if you want to run through this real quick.
What, don't fall me.
Don't fall.
Yeah.
We can't stand another lawsuit. No more lawsuits. If I fall, it's my fault.
Sign off.
You'll remember that R.H. Tyson is the construction manager. We proved that some months ago. We have, they have presented a guaranteed maximum price of $6,943,623.80. And if you'll hand down, I'll tell you the process that we went through. We advertised for proposals for subcontractors, suppliers, on the website and on Brunswick News per the state criteria. That is not a requirement for these construction management projects, but we wanted all of the purveyors and suppliers and subcontractors to know that it was an open process and that everybody had a shot at it. And so everybody that submitted a proposal was given the same consideration. We received good coverage, good competition. We received 56 proposals from subcontractors and suppliers. We have good local participation, including Ridge Enterprises for site work, Bone Dry Roofing for roofing, Overhead Door Company of South Georgia Tower and Tank for paint, Brunswick Sprinkler Company for fire protection, Certified Electric for heating and air conditioning, and you probably know that several of Tyson's key management team are Glen County residents, and they will employ multiple tradesmen from Glen County and will be buying a lot of material and services locally. We'll pare them down just a bit. We reviewed all of the proposals with them. They made recommendations for award, and we think they made good decisions for the subcontracts and material purchases. So we think that their GPM is a good one and ought to be approved.
So we'll recommend to move this forward to the full board meeting next week for approval.
I have a question. Is this the full cost of the project of the 6.9 million?
Yes, ma'am.
No, it's not, I'm sorry.
No, sorry. It's a full construction.
Construction.
Okay.
But there are other fees, I think this includes the preliminary site work, doesn't it, Al?
It does.
Architect's fees.
FF&E.
You probably got furniture and equipment, and I'm sure there's, in the budget, there is a contingency, an owner's contingency. But this is the complete general contractor's price, or the maximum general contractor's price.
I'm just looking at the budget as we have it currently set at 6.58, and just noticing it's a good bit higher, and if other costs are gonna go on top of that, it's gonna push us into the 7 million range.
Yes, it will. And to address that, we have some, of course, we still have our renovations technology category that gets all the excess funds, but instead of tapping on that, we have some funds left over from some projects that are complete that we came under budget on that I would suggest we apply it to. Bourgeois Millet, for example, we're almost at $1,400,000 under budget for that. So we have about $2 million in finished project excess funds that we could apply to making this budget work.
I just wondered if it's just a matter of, time and inflation, or if we increased the scope to such that it needed to be.
Yeah, well, it went from basically a practice gym to a gym with 5 classrooms, 10 offices, a training station, locker rooms, laundry. It had pretty good bit of scope creep.
Okay, I know we talked about the classrooms before, so we're talking about using that not only for extracurricular athletics, but also for the school day PE courses and so forth like that.
Yes, ma'am. When we reviewed it with the school staff, they thought that the 5 classrooms there would be a big help, and we also provided enough office space for coaches and things like that so people wouldn't have to share too much. But it did, the project grew in scope by a good bit.
Thank you.
One of the other things, and I think Jerry could mirror this pretty good as well, is that construction material is just
It's gone crazy.
crazy.
It's gone crazy.
So just to get the materials, it's gone way up. Not just up, but way up.
And one of the things we talked about in this was that, the construction manager scared to death about price increases. So we hope to get things locked in pretty quickly as far as steel and things like that, and lock those prices in, which means we'll probably have to, pay for some stored materials more than we usually do, but we have a way to work that out, and that's going to be the only way to keep this thing, anywhere close to intact, because materials are just going absolutely crazy right now.
Yeah, as soon as you approve it, then we'll immediately prepare the contract the next day for him and direct them to get locked in on HVAC costs, heating and air conditioning costs, structural steel costs, all of those things that are big budget items and subject to cost increases. So if we get those nailed down, then the suppliers usually, if you're under contract, will hold those prices for the duration of the project. If they can go ahead and ship, and that's what Al was talking about. pay them for materials stored on site or stored and insured that we have inspected at their warehouses.
Everything but copper, you know how that goes. Absolutely
We'll
crazy.
miss them before too long.
Yeah. All right. All right. So next on the list is Altama Elementary School. Unfortunately, I have to report that it's fallen behind schedule by a few weeks. The steel was late to come in, and the installation of the steel has been ongoing, and they're catching up. But until that roof gets done on those front 3 buildings, we're kind of in a holding pattern. So hopefully next week, if the weather holds up, the decking will come, and we'll start getting that building, or the front 3 buildings, dried in. And with our good cadre of subcontractors, I think we have a chance to make up the time once the roof gets on those front 3 buildings. But I still think we're in pretty good shape for the end of May. But we'll keep an eye on it, but it is behind schedule.
So what was the original? Was you were trying to get them?
The original schedule had
March 31st, as I recall.
either March 1st or 31st. Maybe it's 31st.
March
1st April.
31st.
31st.
So you're about a month or 2 behind. is what you're thinking.
I'm thinking that 7 to 8 weeks behind.
Will you be able to make up any of that time?
We certainly hope so. What we do is when we get involved with these big projects, we pick good subcontractors, and we have some good subcontractors on this job. And even if the general contractor is not the best as far as managing and all that, the subcontractors really push the job, and they've been loyal to us, and I hope they'll work hard to make it up. So
Thank you.
The steel is the issue, though. That's what they're saying that they
the
put them behind was
steel,
waiting
the
on
steel
that.
was it. I mean, I watched it, and it was very obvious what happened. So
Okay.
hopefully we'll make it up. We will track it, though. We will stay on top of it. Center for the Arts, Dr. Spence, you want to report on our meeting this week at all? Or?
We had a good meeting this week, and we're moving forward with that.
Okay. East Block 4. Huh?
It passed.
It passed. There we go.
You'll be all happy to know we're already starting to get in touch with the state. So we have no interruption because the East Block 3 ends on December 31st. So we need a waiver, but we've gotten one each time, and we're started the process to. So on January 1st, the merchants already are going down a penny because the county chose not to go forward. So everybody buying something on the 1st of the year, it will go from 7 to 6. What we don't want is a month lag time that we go right. So we're working, we've been in touch with them today. So it only passed 2 days ago. So we're going to be fine, and we're excited. And thank you, voters. It was about 2 to 1.
65.
I think it was the biggest margin of our East Blocks.
I think it was too.
So congratulations to those who worked for it. And thank you, voters.
With that in mind, Mr. Tootin and I will start pretty darn soon on programming or some of our early projects, maybe as soon as next summer. As you know, I've made application for a fairly big chunk of state money for renovations, and no need to wait on that. We'll try to get things kicked off something next summer. We'll just have to sit down and program things and see what we can get started on and what needs to wait, but we're going to get to work.
Yeah, and I'd like to second Mr. Lakin's statement. I appreciate the voter confidence in us. I think we put together a good list of projects. A couple of schools that desperately needed attention will get it, and we've been responsible in our spending, and I appreciate their confidence.
And I wholeheartedly was going to say the same thing. But you did very much so. Well, because as long as Jerry and I have been on the board, it was started with us, and to have confidence on 4, that's good. I mean, it really is under these times. So, echo what you said.
Okay. Next on the list is the GOOD report. Kevin, all yours.
we do it from here, or?
You good?
You're fine for that?
Am I good? Okay, great.
Yes, speak
Everybody
loud.
has a copy, and up here on page 1, I'd like to call out that, there's a lot of projects in East Blush 2 closed. There's still a little bit of state capital outlay proceeds that are to come based upon the physical education re-roofing project, and we'll just keep monitoring that. As it says here, the science building, waiting on just a few docs to do final closure in every kind of way. Al mentioned that Altama, he already updated you guys on a delay there, and like I said, I think we are all confident that the subcontractor team that's there are going to be able to work hard to help make up some of that time. On page 2, we moved the Edo Miller project into completion, and we still have 3 months left to complete collections in East Blush 3. And if we look at previous month period, we exceeded the budget targeted by close to $1 million, $459,000 over. Our targeted budget was $1.7 million. 2.159 was collected, and so we've had a very positive trend all through the summer. And in comparison to a year ago, you can see it was at 1.76, so just a little bit over the budget a year ago. So they've significantly exceeded last year's collections at this same time period. Last page there, we are absolutely trending to exceed our overall program target budget collection for East Blush 3. And again, I want to reiterate from the group perspective, it's a great compliment to this board that the citizens have voted to continue this program.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something? I don't get to talk much.
Please, Andy.
I want to remind, I do talk though. Good has been with us 12 years. And there was a little, did we need a construction manager? I mean, did we need an oversight? And the answer is a resounding yes. The county did not have what we've had. And that's why when you see all these stories about county projects and money and they don't know where, we had the Goop Group 12 years along with Mr. Tooth. We've had a great team. Thank you, Kevin. Give our regards to Sam. And thank you for 12 great years and more coming.
We're looking forward to continuing, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin.
Well, you got some action items if you want to hit those or you want to come back.
Oh, yeah.
I have a question too, just real quick before you go to that. The additional parking at GA, do we have an update on that?
We're in the process. I don't know if we've purchased it yet. I turned it over to Andy to purchase those. Remember we voted on that?
Right.
Purchase that. As soon as we purchase that, then Al's going to begin clearing.
So those are the land bank lots, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So we're waiting, which makes sense
Yeah.
until we have all.
Yeah,
the
once we own it, then Al's going to start clearing it.
Thank you.
We're gonna go down to proposed action items 3, and we're gonna go to Mr. Bourgeois,
3E.
E, F, H.
All right, as one of the last stages before we get our final review for our 5-year plan or new 5-year plan, the plan includes phasing out and replacing Glendale Elementary and most of the buildings at St. Simon's. For us to do that, we have to, can you open one of those, Chris? The board has to approve these phase-out resolutions. It's a formality, and it basically says that the cost to renovate those old buildings exceeds what the state would pay us to do that. That allows us to justify replacing the facility, and that's kind of what that says. And we have one for each school. We have one for Glendale and one for the St. Simon's, and it includes not the whole entire school, but I can't see.
Buildings behind it.
Buildings 10, 11, 10, 12, 13, and 14, and 20. Anyway, I can't see it.
Everything except the 1943 original building.
That's right.
What are your expectations on these two schools as far as timelines and starting? And do you have any ideas in your?
Well, the Glendale replacement will be included in the new plan, so my hope is to apply for funding next August to start Glendale. St. Simon's, we have to figure out how we're going to do it first, because it's going to be a job.
That was my
It's gonna
thoughts,
be
because
a
I know you're
job.
talking about portables and maybe having to shut down wings and.
Well, we're trying to come up with a plan where we don't do that. And it's probably going to require maybe a 2-story building behind the old building so we can clear out the old stuff back there, but that's as far as we've gotten. But
I'm sure you'll come up with some good ideas.
Better start with parking.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see, how you gonna do construction over there. That's
well,
gonna be-
they're going to lose their track. I mean, they don't want to, but that's just a fact of life. I mean, it's 7 acres and it's a 500 FTE school. It's pretty tight. Biggest problem over there is going to be dealing with the trees, with the county tree ordinance the way it is. It's going to be a challenge. But yeah, now that we're on go, we'll figure it out.
So am I hearing that the plan, tentative plan, is that the original school building is just undergoing a renovation and the
So-
other buildings will come down? Is that what we're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. The whole idea is to try to get some circulation around that school. All the buildings behind the main building are so close and the alley's so tight that you can't use the alley. So with those buildings gone, maybe we can develop a, bus drive or a parent drop off with some circulation and just kind of make it work. That's our plan.
Okay.
Really, it's a mess over there. It's a mess. We can make it better. We can't make it perfect, but we can make it better.
Change order to the science building.
Change order number 1 for the science building is a return of unspent contingency in the amount of $5,000.
I think it's the next one, Chris.
I can't see it.
It's what-
$5,033.33.
Okay,
That was it.
just zoom on that a little bit, Chris, if you would.
$33.33.
$5,033.33. That was a good project.
That's a small amount.
And then finally, East Bos 4 architectural services.
Oh, I didn't know it was going to be on here, but, well, there it is.
Excuse me. We're recommending that we use Mr. John Tootin as our architect for East Bos 4. We waited until after the East Bos passed to bring this to you.
And with this, we'll be able to get it working.
And I have reviewed it, and it's fine.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bourgeois? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hold on. The next item is E1, review of meeting dates for the 2021 year. E1, there you go. Now this is straight from the handbook that I sent you guys. I just changed, this is the only thing that I changed is the dates. You'll go down and make that bigger, Chris. Those are the dates. Now, I noticed that some folks are having trouble getting here at 4:30. I know that a couple of people don't even get off until 5, and so I'm asking that we move the work session start time to 5, make it easier for folks to get here. And then we stayed with the regular meeting being the second Tuesday of the month, and then the previous Thursday would be the meeting. The work session. So, any questions about those dates?
These dates are somewhat in line with what we've always done or had for the past couple of
Yes,
years.
sir.
Anyway. Okay.
Yes, sir. And I do have 2 meeting dates in December. Basically, we don't know what the GSBA is going to do right there, but I do have 2 meeting dates in December. And July and June, so just because we're not sure how that's going to work out.
Yeah, I think they had the June dates already that we looked at, and this seemed to be okay for the June conference.
Is that right, Ms. Britt?
Right.
Any questions? All right, thank you. All right, next up is Ms. Preston, and then we're going to 3C.
RFP for cabling for new Altama.
Oh, you went to 3A. 3A?
Sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
And so if you'll scroll down to the lowest bidder, we've used these guys before, they're local network service consultants. 108,470, and they were ranked the highest. So we're recommending them for cabling on Tuesday night. Any questions on cabling?
Financial report.
Okay, so last month we talked about the June financial report and how we ended up saving a lot of money during the closure during COVID. So for July, August, and September, I combined the report. The budgeted revenues and expenses in the general fund, overall, we had several changes, been making adjustments to grants and this for. So first budget amendment for general fund, since we adopted the initial budget, budget revenues and expenses are decreased by $8,400 to adjust the hygiene product grant from the state. Budget revenues expenses were increased by $1,000 to record a donation of Teacher of the Year classroom supplies. So our Teacher of the Year got money for spend on our classroom. Budgeted revenues expenses were decreased by $369,200 to remove the school security grant that we got last year for those vestibules that we've been doing at all the schools and a lot of safety stuff. Budgeted revenues expenses were decreased by $4,400 to record a decrease in the state preschool grant that we get. Budgeted revenues expenses were decreased by $500 to record a decrease in the CPAE grants we get. And budget revenues expenses were decreased by $14,200 to record a decrease in the residential treatment center grant. That's the Morningstar facility. The year-to-date revenues represent 12.4% of the budget, and the local tax receipt for July, August, and September combined was $3.4 million. Year-to-date expenses represent 19.3% of the budget, over 25% through the year. My eSplash update is old because you already get goods, but July sales tax collections were received in August in the amount of $2.3 million. And then August was received in September, and that's $3 million. And remember, that is due to the 5-year audit that they did, and we had an audit adjustment of almost $1 million increase for that month. So that kind of skews the comparison. This September to last September, we were 48% higher, but that's because of the audit that was done. So that's pretty much what I have for July, August, and September. Are there any questions?
I do have a question. So the general fund changes,
Yeah.
you mentioned that security grant. So you're comparing it to what we budgeted last year as
The grant rolled over from last year to this year in the budget, and because we were spending it, now it was, the state was extending grants past June 30, and some they extended and some they didn't, and this one, they ended up not extending, but we ended up spending almost all of it. But yeah, so I let that grant roll over to the new year, and I just had to take it out because it's gone now.
Okay. Thank you.
It was a 1-year thing, and I thought they were gonna let us try and spend it out completely, but for some reason, they said no to that one. A lot of the federal grants, they did extend the grant period, but not that.
Let's move on to stipends while Ms. Preston is here. You guys have a sheet that has some proposals if you want to consider stipends. And here's what it would cost the system. You can see those if that's something that you want to do, or if you have any questions about it.
So that's salaries and benefit cost that you're looking at. And Dr. Spence had asked me to look and see what it would cost for 1,000 for all employees, 750, 500, and then if we did 1,000 teachers and 500 for everybody else, and that's the different cost per option.
And this is on the agenda to vote on Tuesday?
It is, unless you take it off. Mike's not here tonight, but he's the one that wanted the options considered.
What's, you say salary and benefits, salary and benefits.
So, yeah, I
Can you
mean,
explain that? Just so everybody knows.
the stipend has to be subject to
Tax.
FICA
Right.
and teacher's retirement.
Just want everybody to understand why
Right,
$1,000 adds up to $2 million, because that's,
Right, so if an employee gets 1,000, then we pay 7.65%, and,
Right. it's not just 1,000, it's actually more.
so, and the TRS is 19.14% of 1,000.
Right.
So
Just want everybody to
there's
understand.
always costs associated with anytime you pay an employee.
Unfortunately.
So teacher net is 1,000 or employee net is 1,000.
They get 1,000, it costs us more than that.
The teacher gets a gross paycheck of 1,000 and then whatever taxes
Less
they
taxes.
have.
Yeah.
Right.
And they need to know, again, less taxes. And if
Yeah,
they
they
don't
know.
want the taxes taken out, they can just refuse the stipend.
So do we need to kind of figure out which route we want to go, or I mean, I guess it's, like I said, Mike's one that kind of brought this up, which I
Yeah,
think everybody
is he
was
not
kind
coming
of
out?
behind it, but, I guess we just got to figure out which amount we would want to do or how we'd want to structure it.
So don't forget, we talked about the June 30 financial report, and if you look at your July, August, and September financial report, you see that we begin the school year with a fund balance of 21.2 million. And that's basically, you know, it would end up coming out of fund balance.
And that was,
But the good news is, we're in a budget surplus this year of 1.1 million. Remember, with the tax digest came in a lot higher than we expected, so. So it would become a budget deficit if you do any of the options that are more than 1.1 million. Our budget surplus right now is 1,111,700, so pretty much all of them, but anyway.
One comment on this I'd like to say is that we need to be very careful because we don't know what the future's going to bring. Collections have been incredible, but that's not going to be the case. I mean, just
Well, sales tax collections cannot be used for any of this. That's all East West. Collections of property taxes could be questionable, but we did go down to 97% collection rate when we adopted the budget. You know, we were using 98, coming in at like 99.9. So we do have a little bit of buffer there because we reduced the collection rate and we set the millage rate to 97%.
I would be more inclined to look at this when we have finished what we're going through, since it's the unknown every other day.
Finish like when? You talking about the spring?
When we're stabilized more and we know
Right.
what's coming up in society in general.
Right, and property taxes are collected, you know, bills go out and they're due November. We usually get the bulk of that money by January, and then it starts trickling in after that, you know, February through the end of the year, but we'll have a good knowledge base of where we ended up on collections in January.
I would think it'd be better to address it in January, not to drop it, just to address it in January when we have more.
What was your
idea
plan
what's
on the
going
stipend?
Sir?
What was your plan on the stipend as far as issuing, or was there one?
Well, we had discussed it, you know, a lot of folks don't understand how our employees get paid during the month of December. So they're gonna get a check on the first day of December, and
We get paid for the month of December 18th.
they get paid the first day of December, they're gonna get a check.
The November
Yeah, that's their
30th,
November
they'll get
check,
a
yeah. They're gonna get paid,
And
they're
then
gonna
they
get, as I said, they're gonna get a check on the first day of December, and then they're gonna get a check on the 18th before we leave for Christmas break, which is that's their December
December
check.
pay.
Yeah, and so they gotta go the entire month of January until the end of January before they receive another check. And so that's something that teachers have always dealt with. And so what I was thinking and what this person was thinking is if we did do something like this, we brought it in January.
First week in
Yeah,
January.
the first week in January. So they kind of buffered the two.
So that means we would need to vote on it at least by
You have
December.
to-
That's correct.
Yeah, you need.
That's correct. Yeah. So,
So waiting until December would give you
Yeah.
enough time?
Yeah.
Okay.
That give us enough time to discuss it more, right? I mean,
Why are we talking about next December, in December?
yeah, I can bring it back in December again. We can talk about it some
oh
more.
no, I mean,
So you get
no,
this
I'm
time.
not saying that we have to bring it back. I was just trying to verify
Right.
because I had stepped out. Excuse me for that.
Yeah.
But I stepped out. But I mean,
I think we should bring it back in December, discuss it then, again, and then decide if we want to go forward with it. Mike's not here and he originally suggested it, so I don't think that would be bad, and that meets the time frame that you need, and that gives him the opportunity to be here then.
And it,
Just
I mean,
make it
January is just the date that we picked
Mhm.
because of that long,
Yeah, it's because of
dry
all that.
run for.
What it allows you to do as a teacher, you can say, okay, I've got this money coming, I can spend it on, these two checks, I can spend that money on Christmas. You know, it just makes the Christmas a little nicer.
I'm for it. I mean, I have no problem with it.
But all we're going through up on board as well, it's just how do we do it?
Right.
So I think we're,
You got some ideas though?
yeah, for sure, thank you.
So this would be 2021 income to them?
If we pay in January, it'd be 2021.
Is
tax
that, was that
year.
your plan?
January
Yeah.
2021.
Okay.
It'd be that first week in January, like January the 4th or 5th or whatever. Because January 1st on Friday, we're not even here. So.
Right.
While you're still here, can we talk about the surplus motor vehicles?
So we have several school resource officer vehicles that need to be surplus, and we'll put them on govdeals.com. Rhonda does that once they get approved. And Rod can probably talk to the guy who used something. Probably doesn't run to death.
Most of those things have got more miles than the space shuttle's got. When we get them from the county PD, they're pretty well worn out. We've really got the goodie out of them. Value-wise, they're $500 to $2,000, I guess. You know, that depends on. Some of them are in better shape than others, but they're definitely have got the good squeeze out of them. And they're ready to go to somebody else. Spending good money after bad, trying to keep them maintained. That's what it's about.
Any questions about the surplus vehicles?
Will we need to purchase any more to replace? I mean, I know these are surplus, but.
We're getting to the point where we're gonna need some more, yes ma'am, we are. We've got kind of that cycle, so that's something.
We're in the same boat for maintenance vehicles too.
That's something I've got to discuss with all the Dr. Spence, and try to figure out, when and how we need to do that. But we're getting to the point where we need to get some more.
Thank you, Ms. Preston.
All right.
Ma'am,
That's all I have.
ready. Any, land legal personnel?
Yes, personnel and land.
Any illegal?
Well, I like to leave it open only because you might have questions.
Legal.
I don't have anything, but let's leave that open.
I entertain a motion to go into executive session for land, legal, and personnel.
Second.
Give it to Reverend Bobbitt, second by Ms. Sams. All those in favor?
Tuesday at 6, yeah.
Everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
6
And I'll go.
at 5:19.
Ready?
Roll on three.
All right. All right, make a motion, we'll go back to open session.
Okay. Motion made by Mr. Mandela. Can we get a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Sams. All those in favor to return to open
Yeah, just
session?
add yes.
It's unanimous. All right, 6-0. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
So moved by Reverend Bobbitt. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mansell. All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0 at 6:17. 5-0. 5-0. Hang yeah, 5-0. 5-0. 6:17.
Did you respond to the email?